Hello. Welcome to Outwit Outlast, a podcast devoted to all things Survivor. I am Jeff Schmidt, the co-pilot, and this is Amanda Schmidt, the pilot. And we are not going to put up with any TSA shenanigans. We're just gonna fly this plane. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
ready.
ready too.
I'm not gonna do that, but I'm ready.
Look, but look, we're flying. Oh my God, a snort escaped me. So I thought we were just chatting briefly before this, and I thought you had a really very interesting and amazing premise for this week, a thesis, if you will.
Yeah, I think the thesis for this week is trying to balance the two things that I think are true. One of which is that this was a good episode and this has been a good season, and I am really enjoying it. And the women on this season are being ignored in the edit, and they are not getting the time that they deserve, and they are not getting their stories told in a way that I think they deserve. Especially, by the way, the women of color and the Hispanic women. Like, there is inequity in who is being shown on camera, and it's frustrating. And I think I watched this episode and I was like, that's a really good episode. And then I read the exit press with Angelina, where she talked a lot about how unfair the edit is. And she was right. And Chrissy posted about it online too. I bet
Mm.
a few different people did. And I think they're right. Like, the edit this season has been skewed in a way that is frustrating. And it's been skewed especially towards white men, I think. And that is frustrating.
Mhm.
And it's hard to kind of hold those two contradictory thoughts. Like, it's kind of hard to hold both. It's a good season and I'm having fun watching it, and the women on this show are not getting what they deserve. But I think that both are true. So I think as we talk about this episode, I want to talk about both.
Okay, I agree with your thesis 1,000% too. There was a moment for me when they were doing that kind of endless Rizzo riff stuff, when many different shots of many different people doing their things with a little D, a little Kamilla. I'm like, where is Cirie? You know, like, she's in this tribe and I don't see her in any of these shots. She's not in the background. She's not talking to anybody. She must be talking to people, I thought. And then
Yeah,
anally, that it makes it sound like Rizzo brought her into the mix and she's so grateful that this kid Riz God, saved her game. And I'm just like, what the heck is going
I
on with this
know.
edit?
Because here's the thing. I thought that the whole Rizzo Charlie competition was compelling, and I thought that tribe's tribal council and the way that those women honestly brought together that alliance and took out Charlie was really fun to
Yeah.
watch, and it was a very satisfying, if devastating for Charlie and made me feel sad for him, but it was a very satisfying vote out, and it was a very satisfying arc that we've been building up for some time. So again, good episode. But the whole time I was thinking, like, I love what Rizzo's doing here, but like, this edit is making it seem like this is Rizzo's plan, even though Rizzo's saying in the confessional, this is Dee's plan. Like, he does kind of say, like, Dee pulled me in and I'm excited about it, but like, somehow we're getting all of it told from Rizzo's perspective anyways, even though it seems to be Dee and Cirie and Kamilla who are the ones driving this plan. And Rizzo's just grateful that they want to work with him and want to take out his biggest enemy. So I don't know. I think it was both a really satisfying arc, and I see why they set it up in the edit to be sort of Charlie versus
Yeah.
Rizzo, because they're young guys. They're very different in some ways and very similar in other ways, and
Yeah.
it's an easy story to tell that it's like one versus the other. But it's so clear that Dee drove that vote. Dee was like, I don't feel heard in this alliance with these bros. I'm going to make my own alliance. And then she made an alliance with an icon of the game who knows where every idol is, knows all of the information, has an extra vote, went from being the target on this tribe to being not even considered once
I
again.
know.
Like, why are we not hearing more from Cirie and Dee here?
I will pose a different major story, which was Camilla's. It
Yeah,
was her vote. she is the one who decided who went home. And you
Yeah.
could make a really compelling story around the fact that the women in this tribe seized on a bro rivalry to take control of their tribe,
Yeah.
which is exactly what they did. Dee executed the plan. Cirie, I think I love the delight in the shots of her when she's just shaking her head, like, okay, you could have had me, but here we
Yeah.
are. And they
Here we are.
did give Kamilla some time to talk about the fact that she was the one that held the deciding vote. But
Yeah.
and that was fine, but it could have been the thrust of the whole segment, and it wasn't. They went for a
Yeah.
much easier conflict and resolution, and
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. It's like the only two women on the island are Aubrey and Genevieve. Like I've been seeing a fair bit of them, but that's frustrating. You know?
Yeah, and Emily, which by the way is all of the white women.
Yeah, right.
So
Exactly true.
that's not lost to me,
No,
you know?
no, it's absolutely true, and it seems to me to be a continuation of a really big problem from last season.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you that there was a cool narrative there, which was like, while these guys are fighting and being so
Mhm.
distracted by these petty things, these women pulled together a really strong alliance. And I do think there are bits of that in this. And there was an editing trick that I really liked that they were doing in that last tribal council, where a few times they cut to Charlie, and then they cut to Rizzo, and then they cut to Camilla,
Yeah,
and they end on Camilla, and then the
yeah,
vote's read. And I liked that. It was always like, Charlie looking so angry and like a little bit like the soul has been sucked out of him. Like he looked kind of lost and
yeah.
furious. And then you cut to Rizzo and he's like kind of like a Muppet. Like he's just sort of happy to be there. And he's like kind of quietly confident too, I think. But like mostly he's just Rizzo, like I don't know how we all end up loving him, but we do. And then you cut to Camilla and she's got this little half smile and she's so confident and
Yeah,
so in control. And I think in those shots it's very clear like Camilla's the one
yeah.
making the decision here.
It did.
And she made a decision, I think, mostly based on, if I had to guess, and I don't know because we didn't see it, so I'm sure it was based on a lot of factors, but one of the factors had to be that she wanted to work with Dee and Cirie moving forward,
Right.
less about like who she actually wanted to keep in the game, right?
Yes, I think so. If she had chosen to vote Rizzo out, that would be cutting out the Cirie possibility. I mean, it would have made it harder for them to work together.
Yeah, I think they still could have, but it would have sort of drawn a line where she's then on the side with like Charlie and Jonathan,
Yeah.
which who wants to be there?
Don't you kind of think that if that alliance had had two votes, they would have voted out both Charlie and Rizzo?
A little bit. I don't know. I think a little bit maybe, but I think that Cirie and Dee at least are both actually pretty happy to be voting or working with Rizzo. And I think Camilla just clocked his lie about Kyle, which was so funny.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Camilla is vaulting up into my pantheon of favorite players. She was always one of my favorites, but she's so intuitive, so
mhm.
perceptive. She has such a great bullshit detector.
Yeah, that alliance is full of shields. Like that
Yes.
alliance is a force field,
Yeah.
you know, because it's got Dee, the only winner left. You've
Yes.
got Rizzo, who nobody knows what's going on with him.
Yeah.
You've got Camilla, who's like a little bit less of a threat than those two, or a little bit less of a target than those two.
Yeah.
But she spent that whole season lying, and a lot of people in pre-press, if nothing else, talked about not trusting her and kind of wanting her to go. So I think that alliance is full of people who can act as shields for each other if they play it right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was similarly frustrated that Emily didn't seem to have much of a voice in the story that unfolded between Christian and Ozzy. It was all their story, but Angelina and Steph, for that matter, and Emily, all three have a story there. They're a majority
Hmm.
of that group now. But I was especially frustrated that all we got were reaction shots of Emily. You know
Yeah,
that.
because I actually think, and this is one of the things Angelina said in her interview, Emily is playing a really good game
I
there. And we
agree.
see Ozzy and Christian talking in ways I think that makes that clear.
Yes.
Like you know how I said Christian's gonna take all the heat for this because Emily did kind of try to tell him?
Yeah.
That's like the first confessional. He says, I don't blame Emily for this at all. I trust her. She kind of tried to tell me.
I know.
Like she did the right thing for her game there,
Yeah.
even in the not quite giving him all the information. It was the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think she knows that. And I think Ozzy has a lot of trust with her. And I think Christian has a lot of trust with her. And that put her in a good position this episode.
Yeah.
But we barely heard from her. And
Yeah.
Angelina said, Emily was the person I trusted there. Like, Emily
Oh,
was the person who was lying to me really effectively.
I
So, like,
wouldn't have
why aren't
known
we
that.
seeing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you think that Ozzy did the right thing?
I'm not sure. Because Ozzy was very upset that they sent Mike home and didn't tell him. And I was a little wrong because you were right. He said he would have blown up their entire plan
Yeah.
if he had known about it. So,
Yeah.
in that way, Emily did the wrong thing by trying to tell him potentially.
The wrong thing for that project, maybe the right thing for her game.
Yeah, but despite being so upset, he still voted Angelina out instead of Christian. And I don't know if it was the right move for him. I think that Christian seems like a big threat, and like having him on Ozzy's side might be a good thing. And I think that Angelina didn't have a lot of people in this game, but it didn't really seem like Ozzy was going to be that person for her. So I think if he sticks with his original first tribe going into the merge and he continues to work with Emily and Christian, I get that working for him. Like, I think he has some shields there, but he also has people who he knows exactly how far to trust. Like, I think he
Yeah.
maybe said something in Tribal about, like,
Oh,
it being important to know how much you can trust someone and that being something you learn in Tribal and in voting. I think he knows Christian's game better now, and that can be an asset. Whereas Angelina was a little bit of like a I don't know if they quite knew what to do with Angelina this season.
yeah.
And I think maybe the right thing for Ozzy to have done from the beginning would have been to get close with Angelina and think about working with her. But because he had been thinking about targeting her for like kind of a while now, I think it was never going to work out with them as allies. So I don't know if taking out Christian as a really big threat at this point, like pre merge, would make sense to me.
I get that. I get that line of thinking. I also think that if you don't take Christian out, Christian's going to have a pretty big target on his back now when word gets out about what happened and that he was the architect of the Mike White vote. Both a feather in your cap if you make it to tribal, but the final three, but also a really big target for a long time.
Yeah,
And but if Ozzy had taken Christian out, I think people would have been thinking hard about Ozzy's game.
exactly.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like Christian made the biggest move pre-merge. If Ozzy had taken Christian out, that would have been the biggest move pre-merge,
Yeah.
and he would have been a big threat. So I think I get why he kept him in the game. And I think this is also another reason this was such a good episode was because they crafted that narrative so well. You know, we see Ozzy throwing a temper tantrum, very mild. I do wonder, speaking of the edit being sort of biased in favor of men, because not only are there more of men, but it also feels like we're getting more nuanced and favorable edits of the men. Like,
Hmm.
it kind of seemed like
Hmm.
they were reacting to Ozzy's tantrum more than what would have been warranted given what we saw, which seemed like not that big of a tantrum to me. But even Ozzy was talking about it as if he had been really throwing a fit. So I feel like we might not have seen the full tantrum that Ozzy threw there, similar to how earlier in the season we didn't see Joe's full tantrum or like the full extent of the fight between Joe and Rick, which like has been confirmed. So I do wonder if we're seeing a little bit less of how much Ozzy reacted to that, but I do think they crafted such a nice narrative around like will he learn from his mistakes, because it was a mistake for him not to trust Cochran in that season. If he
Right.
had trusted Cochran and not thrown a fit, Cochran would have felt like he fit in a lot more on that tribe and he might not have flipped and worked with Coach, which was kind of a defining moment of that season.
That's true.
So I think the way they've set it up, Ozzy learned from his mistake and kept the person who he doesn't really trust in the game.
That's true. we got a really long um, sequence with Ozzy meditating and voiceovering, and then the two of them hugging it out in ways that were very, I think, genuine. It did suggest to me that Ozzy is a different person now than he used to be. That, I mean, it was all great, but it was a very extended set of interactions between two players who were kind of mending a fence. And maybe that's important for us to understand why the vote went the way that it did. But I don't see anything. I don't think we actually got to see Dee and Cirie and Kamilla talking. You know, I mean, there
No.
was nothing to mend there, but we're not seeing the same attention paid to any of the narratives or
Because
interactions.
they must have talked to each other, right? We don't think that Rizzo talked to Dee and then Cirie and then Camilla all individually and none of them talked to each other.
No,
There's no way.
I mean, Rizzo started to narrate it like it was his one last puzzle piece as Camilla, but I don't think that's true. Uh, and so, yeah, I think that edit is, on the one hand, that's dramatic character development that was
Yeah.
felt moving to me in a way that I thought might be cheesy, but wasn't
Yeah.
particularly. And yet, on the other hand, I don't feel like that attention is lovingly bestowed on every member of the cast. I think a stats deity with a stopwatch should sit down with this season and clock how many seconds are given to each player and what the overall tone is, because yeah, I really hate that the biggest rivalry in our third tribe is Genevieve and Aubrey, but neither of them are being portrayed as particularly likable or strategic players, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's true at all.
I mean, I think Genevieve is being portrayed as strategic. Maybe like overly intense, but I think we're seeing her plans around the idols laid out pretty carefully, and I think we're seeing
Oh,
her ability to grow in her social game pretty clearly. And so I think we're seeing her as strategic. But I agree that like everything that's negative about their interactions seems to be what we see in the edit. Like we
yeah,
see Aubrey calling Genevieve something that has to be bleeped out. Like
right.
we see Genevieve doing the passive aggressive like Aubrey, we're all looking for you, which
Yeah,
is funny and like should be in the edit, but like I get the sense that the men were getting a larger portion of them being strategic and thoughtful and nice and goofy, and we're getting a lower portion of that from the women and a higher portion of the women being like catty,
yeah. And
like or portrayed as catty.
catty, and also sort of like genuflecting to the loathsome alpha male coach, like, wh- why can't you just say no to the whole coach energy and form a better alliance, like, I don't know.
I know.
he he's another player that I don't understand how people can't see through him in the moment, but
And I think that a lot of them do. Like, I think a lot of the, like, Coach in confessionals acts like he's at the crux of this tribe. I'm not sure everyone on that tribe would agree with that. I think that
well,
you can argue that, like, Genevieve is kind of at the crux of most of that tribe, and she's just clearly not working with Aubrey or Tiff, really.
right,
Um, but
right.
yeah, I think that Coach is very good at, like, framing himself as being in charge.
Certainly the edit is taking pains to show him at his most ridiculous. The whole drowning thing, this long sequence of him knighting those two, just makes him look like an idiot. There hasn't been a single portrayal of Coach that has made him look good.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the edit is trying to make him look kind of noble. Like,
No.
Colby looked while he was being knighted with his name like he was so like, what's going on? Am I supposed to laugh at this? But then the confessional we get from Colby is just like, this was so nice. I don't know. I think that we're getting a lot of really sincere confessionals from Coach that don't have like goofy what an idiot music behind them. Like
Oh,
I think we
well.
saw him getting the cramp in the ocean, but we didn't see him being down for the count for the next 3 days, which he was.
Ah,
Like,
see,
ah,
that's true. We did get to see Mike White openly mocking him, though, and laughing
that's
about
true.
it, underlining the ridiculousness of Coach. Maybe it's my bias, but I don't think they're trying to set Coach up as the noble warrior that he thinks he is. I think we're just seeing how ridiculous his sort of version of toxic masculinity is. I don't know what it is. He thinks it's sort of spiritual and elevated,
Yeah.
but this warrior code, the dragon, it's toxic, and it's a version of masculinity that's super toxic. And I feel like the edit is not trying to pump it up. I think they're deflating it.
I think it's actually possible that Coach is one of the few people that we're just seeing how they are in the edit,
Hmm.
and like we interpret that how we interpret
Well,
it.
maybe.
Like they're not trying too hard to give it a slant one way or the other. He's just like that, and some people love it, like Joe, and some people hate it, like you and me,
And Mike White.
and Mike White.
Jonathan said it in the first episode. Coach wants attention, and I'm going to give it to him. Everybody knows that Coach needs his attention, and I'm more than happy to give it to him.
Yeah.
I feel
But
like,
we're also seeing a lot of him saying, I'm at the center of things.
uh,
He's getting a lot of screen time, if nothing else.
yeah, that's
And
true.
it seems less mocking and biting than the screen time that Coach has gotten on prior seasons to me.
Maybe. Yeah, it could be. Uh,
Like, you don't think anyone is out there in confessionals talking about what an idiot he is? But, like, we're not seeing a lot of those. We saw Jonathan saying it a little, we saw Mike's facial reaction.
I
We aren't seeing a ton of confessionals like what we saw in Token Teens with, like, Tyson, for example.
don't. There are. This was an episode where I really wished that I could see the raw footage
Yeah.
because especially with Emily, because it could be that they just could not get the right soundbite out of her in confessional. But I think her game is really good. I'm not sure that she always articulates what she's doing. I think she's a very instinctive player, you know, uh, like intuitive and
Yeah.
responding in the moment. Not to say that she's not thoughtful or strategic, but some people like Christian apparently like articulate things on multiple levels, and they're narrators, and they're always thinking
Yeah.
about themselves as narrators. I don't think she thinks of herself as that. So maybe, but
No, that's an interesting point. And I think it's true that Christian is such a good narrator. And right now he is thinking strategically and leading a lot of strategic moves and talking about it in ways that are both clear and funny and entertaining. And so of course he's getting a ton of screen time. That makes sense.
who who was it this episode that said, we're all the heroes of our own narrative? Wasn't it?
Charlie.
Was it Charlie?
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
good, thoughtful point to make this season, especially when you do have a lot of big egos coming in,
Yeah.
hoping to be the center of that story, and they are in their minds.
Yeah, and you know what Devin said in that conversation, I think that I thought was really smart, was that Rizzo was disadvantaged because he had not yet seen how his tribe mates reacted to him on 49.
Yes.
And all of them have had the advantage of seeing what people actually thought about them and said about them.
Yeah.
Like when they lied, we see whether people knew they were lying. And Rizzo really didn't get that. And I think that's a good point. Like, they do all have a lot to learn from seeing the version of the story where they're not as much the hero. And it's complicated because on this season, they mostly were the hero of their season, you know? Like, Christian was still the hero of his season.
Yeah.
Like, Devon's was still the hero of his season. So, like, as
Yeah.
much as they're all, like, blinded by the fact that they see themselves as the hero, I think they're also blinded by the fact that Survivor portrayed most of them as heroes. So they are missing some of that perspective, even though they have seen their seasons.
I really like that point. And I really thought that against a different player, it would have been a very smart psychological seed of doubt to sow. I
Yeah,
think Rizzo is incapable of feeling that doubt in that way. Other players would hear that and say, "Oh, like you're seeing through me a little bit.
yeah,
You're implying that you're seeing through me in a way that I haven't recognized because I haven't had the
yeah.
benefit that you've had." And they might start to hesitate a little bit, but I think Devon's picked the wrong person to try and wage psychological warfare against. Hey, I want to point something out. I'm a little troubled by how much we get sucked into the edit because for the last 15 minutes, maybe, we've been talking about male players.
Yeah.
Coach, Rizzo, Charlie, Christian. I, it's insidious, and
Because that's who we're seeing.
right.
Like, that's whose stories are being told. What else are we going to talk about?
Well, I want to talk. I would like to maybe wrap things up by just saying I was so happy to see Dee finally smiling, energized, playing the game, and I forgot how great Dee is when Dee is playing the game, and Kamilla with that thoughtful, listening poker face, and so many women in their reaction shots. Unfortunately, all they're getting is reaction shots, but those knowing smiles, like, okay, you go ahead and have
Yeah.
your bro feud. We'll
Hmm.
be happy to clean up the mess after you're done.
Yeah. Me too. And just such a testament to how magnetic Dee and Cirie are that no matter how much of a threat they are on any season, no one is willing to target them. That was how Dee won. I think they all knew she was a target for a really long time,
Yeah,
but they just loved her. They wanted to play with her. And I think that's
yeah,
how she's playing this season. I think that's also how Cirie has done so well in
yeah,
so many seasons.
yeah,
People just want to play with them.
yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we can't see the raw footage and we don't know what they had. And I do think that they're crafting really compelling and fun to watch narratives. I just think there must be a narrative there that actually incorporates all these women who are doing really good strategic work here that we're not
yeah,
seeing. And that's frustrating.
yeah. I think it's a flaw. I don't think it's an agenda. If we had started to see a lot of confessionals from Devons and Jonathan, people that were pretty much inconsequential, then I would say, wait a minute, this is really slanted, I mean, really slanted. As it
Yeah.
is, it just seems like um, a very notable undercurrent in the editing of this season, but not to the point of agenda, perhaps.
No, of course, I don't think they're doing it on
Yeah.
purpose. I think there's just probably some bias in who they are seeing as most compelling and funniest and like likely to be entertaining to the audience.
I'm really starting to worry that it's going to be one of those seasons that skews heavily male in the final 12, when you start to get to the jury. And I
Yeah.
really hope that doesn't happen.
In Survivor history, winners who have gotten by far the most dominant edit are always male, and winners who get a really light edit are always female. Like Tony got a crazy heavy edit on Winners at War,
Yeah.
and Boston Rob got a crazy heavy edit on the season that he
Oh,
won. So I think
yeah.
I'm interested this season. I think it could be that like someone like Christian who's been getting a huge edit actually wins. And look, that would be a masterful win by Christian if that's what happens. So I would get why you would want to put him so prominent in the edit if that's the case. But I'm gonna actually be more upset, I think, if the winner is one of these women who's been getting nothing in the edit and then she still ends up winning, but we've spent all this time listening to Christian talk about it. And
Mm.
like if Dee ends up winning this season after like barely being visible in the first few episodes, I'm gonna be disappointed.
I will be too. I have to think about that. That's a really great point.
Yeah, I think all I meant by that was that the winner could still go either way because
Yes.
women who get light edits still win and
Right.
men who get heavy edits still win.
Right. Also, I wonder if you would know this better than I would. If the edit shifts once the merge happens, you know.
I think often it does,
Like,
and like a lot of the cool women who we're not seeing a lot of just haven't gone to tribal council yet.
right.
Like Tiff has gotten two confessionals and that's frustrating, but
Right.
we also haven't seen her go to a tribal.
Right.
So it's super possible. Like for example, Sophie last season, Yellow
Right.
Sophie, got next to no edit in the first half, and then post merge, she was really central and she was in a lot more of the edit. So I'm hopeful that post merge
Oh, yeah.
we'll see more of Tiff and of Dee and of Kamilla
Yeah.
and a little less of Coach, at least.
Yeah. If I have to swallow more coach buffoonery and ego and outrageous camera hogging, I'm gonna cry. But
Yeah.
but maybe we won't have to for much longer because now they're going to be in one enormous merge group with a little teaser that something is going to be very different about the merge. It will change the game forever.
Maybe.
P.S. By the way, this is the merge that I've always dreamed of. I love it when
Like
they,
all of
yeah,
them.
I love it when they get a big merge, 13 or more if possible. People, I love that part. I don't want them to break up into small groups and then vote people out. I just want it to be chaotic. 17, what is it, 17 now?
17.
17 players going to tribal council. That's what I want.
I will say the thing I was most shocked by this episode was the next time on. Like I heard drop your buffs and I was like, "What?" Like out loud I said, "What?" Like the whole episode I like was invested and there was suspense and I wasn't sure who would go home, but it did end up being I think the two people I expected to go home who went.
Oh, really?
But then yeah,
I was so sure Christian was going home this week.
no, you know what made me sure he wasn't was that they put that tribal council first in the order in the edit.
Huh. Why did that tip it?
Because if Christian had gone home, that would have been by far the biggest thing that happened in that episode. Like,
Uh,
Christian has been so present in this edit and he's been so important. So for him to suddenly be voted off, that would be a huge blindside. It would have been a huge move by Ozzy with his shot in the dark in the pocket. Like, that's crazy. So I think that would have been by far the most intense moment of the show. So they would have put it last if it happened.
maybe so. Yeah, that makes sense. You're right.
And I think that the edit for the Charlie vote was actually really fun because the last few episodes it felt like we were building to this sort of tragic downfall of Charlie because he can't get over the demons of his past. But then this episode, they gave Rizzo the classic "this person's too cocky, they'll have to go home" edit.
Right.
Like we saw so many shots of Rizzo saying, "I'm really confident. I think I'm going to make it deep into the game." We like really sat in the cringe of him talking about what a good game he played last season and everybody's listening and it's kind of like, "Oh, stop talking,
I
Rizzo."
know. How does he stay around when he keeps doing stuff like that? Both seasons. He's a mystery to me.
I think he's really lovable despite that. Like, I think he goes from doing that to then saying something so unexpectedly sincere, or like he's always crying, but somehow the mix of him always crying and like
Uh huh.
also being so cocky kind of makes him really endearing. It's like he seems like this arrogant guy, but then he's actually a sweetie pie.
All right. Here's my Jeff on Jeff moment.
Yes, Jeff on Jeff.
I have mixed feelings about Geoff doing those impressions in front of other players. Because on the one hand, they were pretty good impressions. Like, I thought they were really funny. Um, I didn't, especially his Jonathan, for some reason, really cracked me up.
Yeah.
But it almost felt like he was playing favorites with them, or they're about to do a pretty tricky vote. I don't know. It was weird. I like that he's being sort of relaxed. Like, finally, we're seeing the real Geoff. I don't know that I thought it was like the right time and place for it.
I mean, because it was funny, and
It
I
was
do
funny.
like seeing Geoff just like be his full self.
Yeah,
But it's tricky, like, he is often and has been really good at not breaking character at Tribal specifically, like when he's snuffing
yeah,
torches. Like, he always sticks to the script there, and I think it's really important that he does.
yes,
But I think he's been known in Tribal Council to be, to varying degrees, funny and joking around with them, and like pretty serious and giving them a hard time. If this had been 20 seasons ago, he would be way harder on this
oh
tribe.
yeah,
Like the losingest tribe, he would be like, you have to get your shit together. What are you doing here?
right,
So to see him like doing impressions for the losingest tribe was a little bit jarring.
a little bit.
But
Yeah,
it was funny.
it was funny.
He's just doing whatever. He's unpredictable, and I think that's good.
I
I
mean,
think it's better for him to be unpredictable than like
yeah,
just doing the same thing every
he
episode.
said that to Angelina. Like it's season 50. It's celebrating 50. You know, it should be fun.
But you're right. I do like my Jeff with a little bit of like I want to feel like he can still shame them effectively if he needs to. And it's harder to believe that he can when he's goofing around and doing impressions with them.
I just, I guess there's a little part of me that was sort of surprised. Like it was like, oh, when Geoff leaves and goes back to his tent or whatever he goes back to, I don't even know what he goes back to. He's not in a tent. He's
I don't think
in
so.
some palatial cabin somewhere. But he laughs about them. Like
Yeah.
he mocks them, and that was like a peek behind the curtain that I wasn't really ready for. I guess.
Yeah.
You have actual opinions about these players. There's some you like and some you don't. Like he's so careful usually about not betraying uh, emotional responses. That's why that moment in Joe's season was so effective, I
Yeah.
think, because it's pretty unusual that he breaks.
But at the same time, why lie to us? Of course he has favorites. And I don't think he's doing impressions of people that aren't his favorites. And
No,
like
that's true.
the interesting thing about this season is that a lot of them are in some ways on the same level as Jeff, like in how much a Survivor fan would be excited to meet them. And like
Yeah.
Jeff, like they're more like his peers than they are on like a brand new cast season. Alrighty. Well, thanks for talking with me today. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to our listeners. Like and subscribe, etc. Tune in again next week to hear what we have to say about Mega Merge.
Yeah. I love you, Amanda.
I love you too.
Bye.